Am I the a-hole for canceling my brother's wedding? Plus update. Original post. To make a novel short, my female 27, brother male 30 met his future wife Ella, female 28, at a party 3 years ago. Honestly, we never got along, but I always try to put up a peaceful front because my brother seemed blissfully happy with her. Ella was mean to me a lot, like a lot. She would make comments about my weight, my makeup, and especially my dog. She hated animals and hated that I would bring my lab toast to my parents' or my brother's house. It always just felt like something aimed to hurt me. When the two got engaged, she asked me to be her maid of honor, since she has no sisters or many girlfriends. And since my brother seemed thrilled, I obliged. What I failed to realize when I accepted the role was that, to her, maid of honor meant planning the entire wedding. Like I was looking for venues, florists, jazz band, everything. Even worse, she expected me to put my credit card down for all of it. My brother and her are not exactly well off, and since I have a well-paying job, I didn't mind holding the deposits, but it was starting to add up to a lot. Every time I asked Ella about it, she would say that it would all be paid back by her parents before the wedding. Well, flash forward to last week, about 3 months before the wedding, and she was unbearable to be around. She can't last more than a few sentences before snapping at anyone. So when I of course brought up the money, crap hit the fan. I asked if she had received the updated receipts of everything owed when she exploded. She called me a whole line of terrible names. But the one that stuck out was her saying, "What do you need the money for anyway? Your sick dog is dead now." My beautiful Toasty died about a month before this, after he fought the bravest battle with cancer. He was my sole dog, and I was devastated. I blinked at her and simply left the room, having no energy to even respond to something so cruel. I went back to my car, and after the 20 silent minute drive home, I parked the car and immediately called the vendors and canceled any deposit under my card. Every single one. After almost 20 calls, all that was left of her wedding was the dress and a flower arch. I texted my brother a short explanation, and I told him that every vendor would be contacting him if they wished to keep their services, and they were now responsible for covering everything, and that I would no longer be attending. It was a matter of minutes before my phone started to explode and I just turned it off. It's been a few days, and I haven't talked to anyone but my mom, who thankfully understands where I'm coming from. My brother has tried to call, but I just feel terrible, both about what I did and about what she said. I know what I did was extreme, but I also couldn't sit by and practically enable her cruelty anymore. I still can't help but feel bad for ruining my brother's big day. So I don't know, am I the a-hole for this? Not the a-hole. They were never going to pay you back. It's a good thing she showed how wicked she was before he got stuck with a bill. I'm sorry about your loss. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about what you did. They shouldn't be getting married if they don't have the money. If her parents were going to pay, they can put down their card for deposits. When you give family money, don't ever expect to get it back. I hope the brother is good and dumps the fiancée. Otherwise, he's not that good of a person. Very true. They would never pay back. They are so entitled, and it's beyond belief. Also, an easy way to see a person's true colors is to watch out for their response/treatment to animals. Her hate for animals and a nasty comment on OP's dog reveals how terrible she inherently is. Stand your ground, OP, not the a-hole. Now, OP, since you probably aren't going to the wedding, that block of time is still freed up. Why don't you take a day or two and go someplace special? Someplace nice, just for you. You deserve it. Not just to make up for the way the bride treated you, but because of the loss of your dog. Not the a-hole. That's a fantastic idea. With the deposit money she gets back, OP could go to a nice resort or treat herself to spa day. I don't think I'd like to leave my house or vehicle unattended during that time, unless you have roommates to keep an eye on things. That's just me, having some experience with the vindictiveness of mean people. She was going to take you for all that money and was just using you. Your brother was allowing it. The comment about your dog was incredibly crappy. I'm sorry about your loss. Not the a-hole. Nah, brother is too Twitter-baited to tell the evil queen from Snow White. Now for the update. People ask about me paying. Well, Ella was promised a hefty wedding budget when she was younger. But between those years and the pandemic, they had to dip into that wedding fund. In the end, Ella only got a third of what she was promised. She insisted that most of what she had to go to the dress, but she would drone on about how there were so many things the wedding wouldn't have, and how it wouldn't be the wedding of their dreams. It was only like a week after that my brother came up and asked if I could cover a few costs of the wedding, while Ella's parents made up the rest to pay it back. I do make a considerable amount more, and since this would be my brother's wedding too, I agreed. Stupid, I know. Second most discussed was Ella's treatment of me. Truthfully, she played a nice and loving girlfriend well to most, especially my brother. Even I thought she turned a new leaf a few times, but it would never last. Some of the comments she made wouldn't be always outwardly mean enough for a passerby to pick up, aka my brother. Along the lines of, "Oh, are you sure you want to go out in that? Something looser might be more comfortable." Or, "I would loan you a shirt, but I don't want it to stretch out." Mean girl comments, simply put. She lost many friends over her crazy notion of them being jealous of her, even accusing them of being in love with my brother. She had 2 other bridesmaids in the wedding, but they were barely close as well. Someone said it in the comments about being stuck between seeing Snow White and not being able to see the evil queen within. And that's the best way to describe her. She's beautiful, but something is rotting inside. And the most asked if did they stay together. I caved and finally answered my brother last night. From what he said, they are on a break. My brother had picked up on a few instances of her acting questionably but hoped it was wedding stress. He was fuming when he found out what she said, and I do know she no longer has the ring now. My brother and I's relationship is definitely going to need some repair, but I think after a long communication break and setting up better boundaries for partners and respective siblings in the future, we should be okay. Also, yes, I did lose some money. Just as predicted, she hoped I would end up gifting the payments anyway. Ella had told my brother that she was waiting for a surprise check from her grandparents to completely pay it off, but that check didn't exist. Thankfully, the no longer to be in-laws have agreed to sell the dress to pay me back for what I did lose, instead of legal action. Lastly, to my boy Toast. All of your sweet comments made me cry for an embarrassing amount of time. Lol. I hope I made him proud. There will never be a day I don't defend that dog with everything I have. He is being lovingly remembered by his family and his little brother Crumb. Did Ella reach out to you? Yes, but we haven't spoken. She followed me out to my car that day when she realized I wasn't turning around, and just ignored her and drove away, as she started to progressively get more mad. She blew up my phone and was the main reason I had to turn it off. She continuously said I was being selfish for making this time about me. Even tried to convince my brother this sick and twisted version where I was the one who went off. From what I know, no one from my family has spoken to her, including my brother, the last 2 days. If her future sister-in-law had kept her charade for a few more days, she would have gotten everything. So glad this blew up in her face. She never put up a front. She was too nice helping. She only asked her to be the maid of honor so that she could use her. She posted how the anal wart always had something bad to say about her. It was a very low-effort charade, if it allowed her to be a mean girl full-time, even in front of the brother. And she went and screwed it up anyway, lol. Some guys are just that oblivious to the mean girl / a-hat relative things. It took my eldest son calling out his dad in front of father-in-law and mother-in-law to get him to realize, oh yeah, my parents treat my wife like crap compared to my significant others. So this person wanted her to finance her wedding and still treated her like trash? And her brother just went along with it? Some people. Every time I read something like this, I ask myself, how dumb does a person have to be to treat those who make their lives easier like garbage? Next story. Am I the a-hole for being upset that my daughter didn't invite her siblings to her wedding? I, 47 female, had my daughter Claire while I was in college. She was definitely an oops baby, but I love her all the same. Long story short, I got married when I was 30 and have 2 kids with my husband, 10 male and 7 female. They are, of course, Claire's younger siblings, but I don't think she loves them like siblings. When she came home from college for the summer, she always spent time with her friends and cousins, and never with her siblings. I asked her to watch them so that my husband and I could have a break, but she said she was too busy. But I know that she had time because she didn't have kids or a job. Anyway, Claire recently sent out invitations for her wedding. Her fiancé is a good guy, but he always encouraged Claire to spend time with his family instead of ours. And more importantly, he always wanted her to spend time with him and away from her siblings. Regardless, I've been polite and cordial with him. However, when I saw the invitations, I was appalled. You guys, their wedding is child-free. Children are the most important thing in our family tradition. To not include them in her wedding is a slap in the face to everything our family stands for. Even so, I respected her decision. However, when I called her up to confirm that her younger siblings were still invited, she laughed in my face. I understand not wanting all her cousins and nieces and nephews there, but to exclude her own siblings is heartless, and I told her as much. She called me entitled for trying to dictate what she does with her own wedding, and when I tried to explain I was just looking out for my other kids, and that she's not my only kid no matter how much she wishes she was, she hung up on me. Now she's not speaking to me. Am I the a-hole? And how can I get her to include her siblings? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. If she doesn't love them like siblings, you obviously did something wrong. I have much younger siblings and I love them. The difference is, my mom made a big deal of socializing us together despite my bro and I being adults. There is also the factor that my stepdad is always stepping up in our lives and bringing us together as family through dinners and other events. There is history there, I can tell. Suck it up and apologize. None of this is her problem. It's yours. Seems pretty telling that Claire is the only kid not important enough to get her age mentioned. Oh, but she loves her all the same. Wouldn't it make you sick all the same? My heart goes out to Claire. What do you mean you were just looking out for your other kids? Looking out for them how? Do you even care, or are you just pissed? Secondly, she doesn't have to wrap her life around her siblings. There's a huge age gap. She doesn't have to babysit and she doesn't have to invite them. You're pointing fingers everywhere else except inward. She obviously is feeling some type of way, so why not try and understand why your daughter is distant? You're the a-hole. 100%. Two young kids don't want to sit through a wedding. OP is talking out her behind. I'm 46, and I don't want to sit through a wedding. Or even a reception with a sit-down dinner. No kid wants to sit around dressed up in uncomfortable shoes, while adults try their best to ignore them in less photos. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let a guy in my friend's bachelor party cheat on his wife in our Airbnb? Recently got back from a bachelor party for Kevin, male 28. It was not my kind of thing. Drinking for 3 days straight and partying, but fun to see him and some buddies. Kevin decided to invite a childhood friend of his who has always been a troubled person. We will call him Ted, 29. Ted, in my opinion, is an actual psychopath. We will leave it at that. I can elaborate more if y'all desire. On the second night, we all go out to the bars around 10 p.m. to dance and drink more. My brother showed up, and we all had a blast. As we are all getting ready to bar hop, Ted is missing. We scatter and try to find him to let him know we are leaving, but nobody can find him. We decide to stick around at the same bar after quickly checking a few others with part of the group. Around 1:30 a.m., we are all getting ready to leave and we spot Ted with 2 girls. When we ask him what the heck he was doing, he says, "I'm bringing these b****s back with us. They are DTF." We all groan, and I personally wanted to say absolutely not, but Kevin did put up a fight, so I was like, whatever. After an uncomfortable ride back, we all go up to the apartment Airbnb and get ready for bed. Except Ted, who is still outside with the girls. I decide to sleep on the couch. Since my shared bed is with an extremely drunk guy I don't want throwing up on me. Ted comes in at 3:30 a.m. with one of the girls and tells me to get up, that it's his bed. I say, no, absolutely not. You can sleep on the floor or in with a drunk guy. He gets aggressive and grabs my shoulder to pull me up, and I stand and pin his arms to his side, then repeat what I just said. After the confrontation, Ted goes back to my room to do something, then comes out and leaves with a girl. He returns at 4:30 a.m. He was really mad that I blocked him. I fundamentally disagreed with his choices and wanted to stand up for what I thought was right. My reasons being 1, we all paid for the Airbnb, and 11 of us, all engaged or married in a cramped space, don't want to hear that going on. 2, he is engaged. 3, he never once asked Kevin if it was okay to bring a girl back at all. Following this, I found out later he destroyed my AirPods Pro and cologne to exact his revenge. So now I'm taking him to small claims court after he spat on my face and refused to make it right. He also alleged that I assaulted him, which is just not right. I pinned his arms to prevent conflict, as he is 5 inches shorter than me and made of Play-Doh. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I'm happy to consider both sides, but those of you saying I blocked him is a really poor argument in my opinion. Why do it in a cramped Airbnb when you can just get a hotel? I feel like he was doing it just to show off. Not the a-hole. Even if you had been wrong to block him, which I don't really think you were, as he was involving all of you in his infidelity by bringing her back to the shared Airbnb that didn't even have a room in. He escalated by making it physical and destroying your property. Good luck on the claim. Hope you win. Thank you. It's my first claim, as I have been lucky enough to never have had friends that would even think to do something so petty. I really hate we couldn't resolve it out of the court, but he basically replied to my request with F you. Not the a-hole. Sounds like he's the kind of friend that's felt sorry for, but no one has guts to tell him no. It's a friendship affair almost. As for the assault, he pulled at your shoulder first. I sincerely hope Ted's fiancée finds out about his shenanigans and dumps him. That makes sense. I was wondering why nobody else was saying anything. They might just think it isn't their problem or feel bad for the dude. By the way, you are extremely perceptive to gather that from such a short story, as that is word for word what a lot of the men in the bachelor party said that didn't know him. So instead of small claims court, the better revenge would be to contact the fiancée and let her know. I would have outed him in front of the girl. Do you think your fiancée would approve of you sleeping with her? Not to worry, you still have the opportunity to tell his fiancée now. A girl who will go and sleep with a stranger from the bar in an Airbnb with 10 other guys in it is not likely to clutch her pearls at the thought of the dude being engaged. Lol. Update. My brother's girlfriend made an altar of my child. Original post. I'm 34 male, wife is 32 female, brother is 27 male, and brother's girlfriend is 26 female. I'm looking for advice here because this is completely over my head, and my initial reaction to this is probably way off. My brother has been dating his girlfriend for about a year now. She's a nice girl, but at times her behavior is odd and erratic. She asks over and over again to babysit for my kids, girl and boy, 3 and 5. My wife and I have always said no. This weekend we had a barbecue and she was acting extremely strangely, only speaking in a baby voice, not talking to any of the adults and running around with the kids. My wife pulled me aside at one point, extremely upset. She has found her in our 3-year-old's room, in her playpen/ball pit area, sucking her thumb covered in our daughter's blankets, with all of her stuffed animals. My wife was completely confused as to what was going on. And when she asked my brother's girlfriend what she was doing, she responded in a baby voice that she was tired and needed nappies. My wife came immediately to get me, and we both confronted my brother to ask him what the heck was going on. My brother got extremely embarrassed. He said that his girlfriend has dissociative identity disorder, and one of her alters is a 3-year-old girl. My wife and I don't know anything about this disorder, so we didn't really say anything. Just told him to please go get her and keep her out of our kids' room. I went to get her, but within 15 minutes he still wasn't out. I went to go see what was going on, and his girlfriend was extremely upset, insisting that he calls her Evelyn, our daughter's name. That was the last straw for my wife. She told her to leave, and brother's girlfriend started straight up sobbing using her baby voice, saying she's confused and doesn't understand why everyone is being mean to her and calling her the wrong name. That night, my brother called and admitted that not only is one of her alters a 3-year-old, it's very specifically our 3-year-old. He said he can't talk to her about this because when she's not her Evelyn alter, she doesn't remember anything, and when she is her Evelyn alter, she isn't rational. My wife and I told my brother she's not allowed at family functions anymore, and she's not allowed around our kids. My wife was extremely upset and told my brother that his girlfriend was psychotic and that she wouldn't understand why he was still with someone like that. My brother is upset that my wife said those things about her and said he understands we would be upset about her having an alter of our daughter, but she can't help it, and we should be more understanding because it's a disorder due to childhood trauma. Did my wife and I handle this the right way? We know nothing about this disorder, and doing research into it, the medical definition doesn't seem to match the way my brother's girlfriend is acting. Adding from a comment because it seems relevant, she doesn't have an official diagnosis. Apparently, it was rude of my wife and I to ask if she was getting treatment or had a diagnosis because therapy isn't available to everyone and self-diagnosis is valid. She comes from a very affluent family and definitely has the resources to get therapy and proper diagnosis. I know DID is debated among professionals about whether it's a legit thing, but from the people I've seen who claim to have it, their alters are their own identities. It has never ever been someone else's who actually exists. This is the bit that throws me off further. She claims to have a 3-year-old as an alter? Sure, whatever. But saying that she's your daughter? This is way more concerning. Don't let her back until she's sought professional help. Well said. It was outside the scope of my post. But DID manifesting as these wildly distinct personalities, like in primal fear with an inability to remember what has happened, is very Hollywood and not often how it goes. The one example of something on the spectrum of DID I've seen was a patient who had compartmentalized like 3 different active lives within her life. They knew of them, took responsibility for it all, and couldn't exactly account for why they lived this way, other than that it felt exhausting the idea of any of those people knowing the other version of her. As if something had happened at some point in her life so traumatic, it just fractured her sense of self, to the point that she couldn't even really conceptualize herself behaving differently in different settings, without manifesting different realities where it was acceptable for her to behave those ways within. She really tested fine and behaved normally otherwise. This woman, on the other hand, is like actively causing discomfort in adults with how active and energetic she is with the kids, fixated on their child, and massively breaking down into fits of tears in situations that don't seem right. There's something robustly psychiatric going on. I just highly doubt it's DID. My money's on mania, substances for an extremely disordered personality. I would ban her from my house. You don't need a reason to decide who is allowed around your children, and this woman has given enough reasons anyway. Trying multiple times to babysit little kids while behaving like a little kid, allegedly due to a mental illness she didn't disclose? That's really messed up. If she really is suffering from dissociative identity disorder, she's not handling it appropriately. And you can tell your brother that is not because you despise her, but because you don't feel your kids being safe around her. 100%. If she actually has a 3-year-old alter and can't control when it fronts, she's objectively an unsafe guardian for her children. When people age regress, it's because they literally cannot cope with adult responsibilities with their current skill set. Now for the first update. So to start things off, my wife and I have done a lot of research into dissociative identity disorder. Right off the bat, I'll be blunt here. I do not believe in the fad DID or anything that goes along with it. I don't think people are programmed to be systems. I don't think people make fictives over characters from TV or movies. And I definitely don't think it's possible to make an alter of a specific 3-year-old girl. I think that's all attention-seeking BS. I don't know about the validity of actual DID, if it does exist, because at this point it is being faked so much, it's impossible to figure out if it's an actual disorder or not. I definitely don't think if someone did actually have DID, they would be on Reddit casually talking and making videos about meeting the alters and BS like that. And no, I don't think being in the DSM proves any validity whatsoever. I do think if you really are convinced you have DID, you probably do have some sort of disorder that you should get checked out with an actual reputable doctor. Now that's out of the way, my wife and I have heard from my brother after the party. He still thinks we owe his girlfriend an apology. We told him that he owes us an apology for not telling us about his girlfriend's erratic and psychotic behavior. I'm not using the term psychotic to be insulting. I really do think she's experiencing some sort of psychosis. My wife told him that due to his extraordinary lack of judgment in bringing her around our family and our kids, when he knew about this, we didn't really feel comfortable having him around our children without one of us directly there either. We encouraged him to get her to see an actual doctor and get checked out. We told him we'd be willing to help her look for doctors in the area if she needed support and didn't want to involve her family in this for whatever reason. But we also told him under no circumstances will she be allowed around our children again. Unless she goes through intensive therapy, realizes what she did was wrong and apologizes for it. Thanks to everyone for pushing us in the right direction as to what to do. We really appreciated all of your input and comments. To clarify, I'm not saying DID isn't real. I don't know. I think you all know what DID fad I'm talking about. I don't believe in the social media DID, the meet the alters and watch me switch BS. And yes, She does have a TikTok account where she does pretend to be my daughter. Protect your children. This is disturbing behavior, and the fact they tried to hide and then excuse her issues when they directly impact your home is such a breach of trust. I'm proud of you and your wife securing your border. If no one else has said it, cameras, 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 near the egress and ingress points of your home. Thank you. We already have cameras installed, but we are looking into getting 2 more near the entrance of our driveway and at the edge of our property in the backyard. And let the daycare/preschool/any childcare person know as well. She could show up and try and claim she's the nanny. Truly, OP, you can't be too safe for this type of situation, and I say this as a school nurse. You do not think it's extremely creepy that your brother sleeps with a woman who pretends to be your 3-year-old daughter? Maybe you need to keep them both away from your kids. Please warn everyone about this, especially people with small kids. It's better to hurt an adult's feelings than it is to fail to protect a child. I do think they did something in your daughter's room. You should wash and check everything. You are 100% correct. She's faking this. Either she has mental illness, other than DID, or most likely she's faking for attention because it's the latest fad. Probably spends way too much time on TikTok. Your brother is enabling this. What's worse is he is in a romantic and sexual relationship with a woman who pretends to be his 3-year-old niece. His 3-year-old niece. He sees his girlfriend pretending to be his baby niece and is okay with banging her. Even if he doesn't do it while she's faking, he's still seen her acting as this little girl and continues to be intimate with her. If he doesn't see that as a problem, that's a massive red flag in itself. Honestly, keep your kids away from her, and possibly him too while he's with her. That's what stood out to me too. A lot of these DID people use their little altars as a fetish thing. I'd keep him away from the kids forever. This is such a huge red flag for him. Remember last year, the girl who found out her parents' kink was the mom pretending to be her. Now for the final update. This is probably going to be my last update because we have since cut off all contact with her and my brother and are in contact with the police. She refused to get inpatient psychiatric help willingly, but her family put her under a 5150. Long story short, she approached our child while she was at a park with a nanny. Luckily, the nanny knows about the situation and removed our daughter immediately, contacted the police, and then contacted us. She tried to tell our nanny that we had told her to pick up our daughter and take her to her grandmother's house. She waited until it was close to the end of our nanny's shift to make it more believable. Luckily, the nanny didn't even engage with her. She just picked up our daughter and walked away, recording the entire incident to have proof. She ran after the nanny, telling our daughter, "Go ahead, Evelyn. Tell her you know me. We're going to go to Grandma's." Her family told us that there has never been any abuse in the family. She has never claimed to them that she has DID, though they have long suspected she has histrionic personality disorder. My brother has not contacted us since this happened, but my wife doesn't want contact with him anyway, and I agree with her. Again, thanks for all of your advice and well wishes. Though she's never allowed around my family again, I'm incredibly happy she's getting the help she needs, and hope her recovery and treatment go well for her, and I wish her the best. Freaking shivers. God bless that nanny. We're very thankful for her, and incredibly proud that she reacted the way she did. Definitely keep a vigilant eye, and never allow that woman around your daughter again, ever. Your brother's choice of women is definitely off, and wouldn't trust him again either. Wait, what? Your alter cannot be another actual person. That's nuts. You don't have DID unless you are diagnosed. You have a great nanny who knows what she is doing. I think the histrionic personality disorder is spot on. It's based around needing to be constantly the center of attention and faking regression or a child alter and needing to be taken care of because you're sick sounds like an extreme but plausible presentation of that. There have been a few posts like this where people basically romanticize certain mental illnesses online, calling all mental health care and therapies as ableist. I remember one not too long ago where a girl's young sister was aggressively flirting with her BF, making both of them uncomfortable before claiming she had an alter of her sister making her do it. Mentally unwell people are unpredictable. Time for cameras, restraining orders, and a way to defend yourself, and a way for the nanny to do so as well. We have cameras and have installed more after the first incident on the perimeter of our property, as well as outside of our children's room. We're in the process of getting a restraining order, though it doesn't seem likely she'll be leaving the inpatient facility anytime soon. Don't trust that. They push people through those places quickly. And mentally ill people like that rarely stay on their meds. Last story. My friend 25 female thinks she's pregnant, but I 25 female don't believe she is. And I don't know how to handle this as a good friend. One of my best friends has been trying for a baby for years. She sadly has had 3 losses along the way, but she wants a child so badly. I feel worried for her because I'm afraid she may be convincing herself she's pregnant when she's not. A few months ago, she told me she was pregnant, but when she went for her first appointment, the doctor told her she wasn't ever actually pregnant. She ended up very upset. She felt like she had a miscarriage and was upset that the doctors weren't acknowledging that or taking her seriously. I wasn't sure about it, but I just want the best for her and was hoping that she would someday get the baby her and her husband, 28 male, have been wishing for. Now to the current situation. I'm currently pregnant with my first child. I found out just over a month ago, and the day after I told her the news, she told me that she took a test and was also pregnant. I immediately had my doubts, but I was hoping that she would get the baby she wants this time. She showed me a picture of her pregnancy test, but I didn't see a positive line at all. To me, it looked like a negative. She also told me that she just ended her period, so it didn't make sense to me that she could be pregnant yet. But I didn't want to confront her because I know it's a sensitive subject. Fast forward to yesterday. She told me she saw a doctor and they said she wasn't pregnant after all, as I suspected. But then she called me again today and said she didn't believe the doctor, so she decided to take another test and that she is pregnant. She showed me the test and once again there's no double line. It looked completely negative to me. I told her I didn't see a line and she said it just wasn't showing up because of her camera. She said she's planning on having this huge surprise for her husband, which I empathize with because I'm sure at this point he may be having a hard time with this emotionally. I feel like my friend is getting her hopes up, but after the losses she's had, I don't want to be a bad friend by telling her she's wrong or congratulate her for something I don't believe is true. I don't know how to respond when she talks about how excited she is. Any advice on how I should handle this while not overstepping and still being thoughtful of her feelings? Thanks for reading the long post if you did. Now for the advice. I wouldn't argue with her, but I think you really need to talk to her husband because she seems to be a little out of touch with reality, and there's a chance that he doesn't know about that since she's planning surprises to tell him, so he might not know about the positive tests. Yes, and she should also talk to the husband about the pregnancy tests. I am certain that OP's friend sees the line that is supposed to get colored because it is made of a different material to the rest. It is sometimes visible on the tests even when they are not positive, but just wet from the urine seeping in. This also happens if you leave them too long and then look at the results. And if you test on a day of your missed period, it should really be quite a strong line already. It sounds like she's having some kind of mental health crisis causing this delusion. I'd encourage her to see a therapist to work through her frustration/sadness. A professional will pick up on this stuff. Else, I think you just roll with it. Hopefully her husband will direct her towards therapy. I agree with this. It sounds like she's experiencing a significant delusion and truly fully believes that those tests are positive despite the reality. She needs help, OP. I think a good first step is talking to her husband. Delusions are a difficult situation, and people react dramatically to having their delusions shattered. Same, I knew a woman from a group on social media who announced her pregnancy right after I did. Her pregnancy updates became increasingly unhinged. At 11 months later, she had still not given birth. It was obvious that she had either miscarried early on or was never pregnant in the first place. We didn't know what to do. It was update. My brother proposed to my fiancée and I'm mad. Original post. My 28 male brother Mark, 26 male, used to date my fiancée Jen, 26 female, a year ago. For context, they dated back in August 2022. They were only together for a month before he broke things off with her because he was bored of being in a relationship and never really wanted to settle down anyway. At the time they were dating, I was in a different state, so I had no idea he even had a girlfriend. And I had no idea who Jen was until I met her. Jen and I met at a bar when I moved back in October and hit it off really well. She was easily the most beautiful and intelligent woman I ever met, and we met up a few times more before we made it official. Fast forward to December and I finally bring her up to my family and proposed them meeting her at Christmas. They knew I was in a relationship, but I'm not the most open about my personal life, so I kept details about her to minimum until I knew how serious we really were. My parents asked to see pictures, and they started passing my phone around the dinner table. Mark saw it and blew up, calling me a horrible brother for dating his ex-girlfriend, and he demanded I break it off with her. I refused. When I asked Jen about it, she confirmed they dated and gave me the details about their breakup. It took a few weeks, but eventually Mark stopped bringing up me dating his ex, and I thought he was over it. On Jen's birthday this year, I took her out to a fancy dinner with both our families and her closest friends, and I asked her to marry me. Mark flipped once again and blew up about me proposing to her, which I and my sisters immediately shut down. The incident happened this past weekend. Mark had been pretty quiet about the whole thing for the last 2 months. I didn't see him much and figured he went low contact with me, which I had no problem with. Then he invited me and Jen for a family dinner at his apartment with my parents and sisters. I thought it was weird, but my parents and sisters were also going, so we agreed to go. The dinner was nice, nothing too fancy, and we moved to the living room to talk. About 30 minutes into normal conversation, Mark stood up and told us he had an announcement. He made a long speech about being happy to have his family around his big moment, then got on one knee and pulled out this cheap ring while asking Jen to marry him. Jen was confused and obviously uncomfortable and demanded that he put it away and stand up. My dad tried to make a grab for Mark, but I got to him first and hit him. I won't repeat most of it, mostly because I was too angry to even listen most of it, but he said something along the lines of wanting to show me that Jen wasn't really into me and just wanted to get back at him. Before it could get worse, my parents rushed me out and promised to talk to him. It's been a few days since it happened, and I'm still mad about it. I don't know what to do at this point. I'm scared Jen might have second thoughts marrying me because of this. Any advice? Now for the top advice before reading the update. I think it's clear that your brother doesn't even like nor want Jen. He doesn't even see her as a human. He sees her as an object, a toy that he didn't want. But seeing someone else with it makes him go, "No, mine," like a freaking child. So he's acting out and trying to drive a wedge between y'all in order to get his way. If he liked her, he would care about how she feels. If he liked her, he'd want her to be happy. He doesn't like her. So forget the tantrum he's trying to pull and block him. No need to entertain that nonsense. Absolutely this. How much do you want to bet the brother is also the sort of guy to get mad when somebody else gets a promotion at work while he himself is doing below bare minimum at all times? Wow, he's that ex. It sounds like your brother needs more time away from Jen before he can be a normal acquaintance or future brother-in-law. You and Jen should go low contact for at least 6 months to a year to ensure he moves on properly. I think he's moved on. They dated a month, and he broke up with her. He doesn't see her as a person, but he puts down the toy he doesn't want, and now someone else is touching it, so he is having a tantrum. Lock your brother out of your life for good. That's the only way you and your fiancé will be able to live peacefully. Don't listen to his family BS if anyone tries to give it to you. Thankfully, I haven't heard the his family nonsense much, aside from my mom and a few aunts. They know me well enough to know our relationship isn't enough for me to put up with his disrespect, especially towards my fiancé. They'd be wasting their breath. The brother sounds like a petulant child. If your girlfriend ends up going back to that over you, which going by what you've said I'd say is highly unlikely, then you'd have dodged a massive bullet. Yeah, I don't think I have to worry about her going back. Safe to say she can't stand him either, lol. Edit. First, thanks for reading and responding. I've been reading the comments between last night and this morning and valid points were made. There isn't an update since the only people I've spoken to since that dinner is Jen and my little sister. I want to clarify a few things that I saw in the comments. 1. Jen and I are newly engaged. It was one of those feelings where we both knew we were in it for the long run. As fast as it is, I'm sure about her. 2. When we met, I was the one who approached her, not the other way around. Whether she knew or had suspicions of us being related, I don't know. I asked after finding out they dated, and she says she had no idea. I didn't have a reason to doubt that, but I can admit this seemingly overreaction on Mark's part does raise red flags. 3. I had no idea she and Mark dated when I met her. Mark and I aren't close at all. We used to be, but as we grew up, we drifted and talked less and less. Before I moved back, we didn't really speak much, aside from special days like his or my birthday. Jen knew of my family but not much until I decided I was ready to introduce them to her. When she and Mark met again, I didn't get a sense of any residual feelings on either part. She didn't treat him like a stranger, but she also wasn't overly affectionate with him either. 4. I was told this was a relationship that lasted a month. I didn't think I needed permission from Mark to ask her to marry me, but maybe that was wrong of me. I'm not sure. That being said, I plan to talk to Mark this weekend to lay everything out on the table and figure out what's up. I never asked for a side of their relationship. It's just my fault for not doing my due diligence. If anything major or enlightening happens, I'll update. But for now, that's all I have. Now for the full update. First, I want to thank everyone for reading. It's been a busy weekend, so I haven't had a chance to reply to many people. But I did edit in responses to the most common questions I saw in the comments of the original post. Again, thank you. I appreciate it all, even the criticisms. Now for the update. I called Mark and asked him to meet up with me at my place to talk. I told him I would prefer Jen to be around for the talk as well, but I was cool with it if he didn't want her there. He agreed to talk to both of us and showed up at my place around noon today. It was pretty quiet for a few minutes before I started a conversation. I apologized for not warning him I would be proposing to Jen, and I apologized for hitting him. He said it was whatever, but he appreciated the apology. I told him what Jen had said about the relationship and breakup when I asked her about it, and I asked him to confirm if it was true. I pretty much said that his reaction throughout the whole thing has been extreme, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding their relationship or downplaying how serious they were. He confirmed that they only dated for a few weeks, and he broke up with her because he lost interest. Jen asked if he was acting like this because he still had feelings or regrets about ending things with her. He said he could admit he thought she was more attractive than when he last saw her, but there weren't any feelings or regrets. He said he just didn't like seeing a girl he dated, even if it was short-term, with his older brother, and as a man shouldn't have violated him by pursuing things with his ex. I reminded him that I had no idea they dated, so it wasn't like I consciously did this knowing their history together. He shrugged me off and said it didn't matter. I still should have broken it off. He was adamant that if the roles were reversed, he would have done the same thing, which I doubt. I asked him why he proposed to her if he didn't have any lingering feelings. Basically, to sum it up, he was talking about it to one of his buddies who was around when Mark and Jen dated, and the guy put the idea in his head that maybe Jen knew from the start that we were related and was doing this to get back at him, considering Jen had been hung up on him after they ended. He and his friend thought it would be a good idea to test it and see if they were right. So he came up with the idea to propose and see if she dumped me for him. Jen asked him to elaborate on why he thought she was hung up on him, and he told her that he heard she was asking about him following the breakup and still hanging out at the places they used to go to, so it was a valid assumption. Then for her to pop up randomly with his brother affirmed his suspicions. Jen told him she'd only ask about him once following the breakup, and she'd been hanging out at those places with friends before they started dating, and she wouldn't avoid them because of a breakup. She also told him she was offended at the idea that she would go as low as to pursue me, just to get back at him. He shrugged and gave her a half-baked apology, but said she had to see it from his point of view. He asked her if she really didn't know, and she told him that she didn't see the resemblance in us until we were in the same room, and we act nothing alike, so it never crossed her mind, and he said okay. That pretty much wrapped up the conversation. He did tell me before he left that I could take back his invite to the wedding, because he can't bring himself to support our relationship knowing he used to date her. I told him he didn't have to worry about that, as he was most likely going to be uninvited anyway. It's been a few hours since our talk, and I do feel better. My parents aren't too happy about him being uninvited, but they understood that it was a mutual decision and probably for the best. My sisters told me they knew he didn't have a good reason for being an a-hole, and they don't blame me for not wanting him at the wedding. As of now, I'm going to limit contact with Mark, and I doubt he'll reach out to me anytime soon either. Once again, I want to thank everyone for reading and commenting, and if anything significant happens, I'll update again. I can't get over the fact that he only dated her for a few weeks, doesn't tell you at all, and then still expects you to break up with someone that he apparently was not interested in at all. He has some horrible friends, and the fact that he doubled down tells me he's looking at your wife more as a property or used goods rather than a human being. Not to mention the disrespect on a personal level to assume that you're not deserving of happiness if he's already been with that person. He has a really crappy mindset. That's likely going to paint a very bad picture in the future of him. I imagine the brothers' buddies all killing themselves laughing that they got him to do the proposal. I refuse to believe this is real, because I do not want to live in a world where an adult can be so stupid to think that plan would work. Even if Jen was this conniving person, a public proposal as your attempt to edge her back in is literally insane. I've had former friends who thought they were such hot stuff that they actually did pull something like what Opie's brother did, only to have a severe reality check later. This story may sound unbelievable, but the stupidity is sadly real. What happened? They thought they could seduce their respective exes back to them, and were even convinced to take it further by proposing from other friends I also no longer associate with. You can imagine how that turned out. Hindsight, weirdest friend group I fell into. I had a tormented relationship for 5 years with someone who had asked me to marry him, then didn't want me to tell anyone for over a year, by which time he was saying it was a mistake. That was the trigger for our final breakup, and I was lucky enough to connect with an old crush soon after. Despite knowing that, Mr. Ambivalent decided I was the love of his life after all, and that he'd better get down on one knee in a park and propose. Screw you, guy, and your crappy cheap ring, and year of whiny emails. My ex-husband proposes to his partner every now and again, just to tell her that it was only a joke, the next day. Our children have been present when this nonsense went down. I would have kicked his butt a long time ago, but they have a severely autistic son, and he has the money to provide to his needs and specialty facilities, etc. I think she stays for this reason. Last story. Am I 48 female crazy for letting it bother me that my partner, 49 male, agreed with his ex about me? I've always been independent. I was single and on my own 100% for 10 years with my child until I met my current partner. Bought my own place, owned 2 cars just like majority of people do. This guy is truly amazing and I have never been happier. We have been together 4 years. His ex-wife, I noticed in the beginning of our relationship, was always calling and yelling about needing more money for this, more money for that. Always about money. Their children are grown and he already makes huge payments, but it was just not enough. Anyhow, not my business, so not my place to say anything. Not something I even cared to know about. We have never met or interacted and never had any reason to. So in December, she texted him talking about what a mooch their son's girlfriend is, and her mother as well. He was playing the texts in text-to-voice while sitting next to me, so no, I wasn't snooping. She said a girlfriend needs to sign a prenup before getting serious with her son. The son doesn't own anything or even work, so unsure how his girlfriend is mooching from him. She was just sounding extra spicy and miserable. Then says, speaking of which, you need to get whoever that is that you're with to sign one too. We have worked hard over a half our lives to just have her take everything from us. I was stunned. But when he replied to her, Roger that, I was incredibly hurt that he didn't defend me. He instead sounded like he agreed with her. I asked if he really thought I was going to do something like that to him, and he said no. When I mentioned that really hurt when he agreed, he just said let it go, and it's nothing to be upset over. We had never even talked about moving in together. I definitely like having my own place, but now after that, I will never ever move in with him in the future. Not a chance. One time, he mentioned a problem about the huge payments he makes to her, and I was snarky and said something about her being so concerned about me signing a prenup so I don't take what's hers, and he got angry. The one and only time I have seen him angry at me. Part of me wants to bail because she obviously still has so much control over his life when they have been split for years. Am I crazy for letting this bother me like it thinks I am? Now for the top comments. I definitely like having my own place, but now after that, I will never ever move in with him in the future. Smart call. Really a smart call. So, he didn't get angry with the ex when she went off on you and didn't shut her down, but he got mad at you when you pointed this out? Me thinks your partner is a little confused about who exactly his partner is. Thank you. Someone who understands what I'm saying here, lol. Just flip it back on them both and say, I don't think it's a good idea to move in together and intermingle our finances. I worked way too hard all these years to have you and your ex bleed me dry with these ridiculous adult-aged child support payments. Now you know that she will always have a say or control a certain aspect of him and his money. Just the fact that he let her demand more money and not put his foot down and go with what the court says is saying something. I get when the kids are younger, but as you said, they're grown. Yes, and the fact that I am not allowed to tell him it upset me without being made to feel stupid makes me wonder if this is worth it as well. That is the point where you should take some time and decide if he is really someone you want to be around, when you can't even talk about something that upsets you. I agree. Am I the a-hole for insisting my niece is co-flower girl with my fiancé's niece? Plus update. Original post. My fiancé and I are planning our wedding. She comes from a large family. She has 5 sisters. Most of them have kids. 4 of her sisters are her bridesmaids, 1 is serving as maid of honor. I come from a smaller family. Just my parents, my sister, and my niece, Bryn. Bryn is 3 years old and pretty much my best pal. I'm her godfather, and I love her to bits. I didn't care when my fiancé didn't choose my sister to be a bridesmaid, and likewise, my sister was cool with it. I did feel some sort of way because I have all 4 of my fiancé's brothers-in-law in my wedding party, at fiancé's request, but ultimately it's her side of the party so she can do what she wants. Then it came time to pick the younger roles in the wedding. Her older nephews are junior groomsmen, the younger is the ring bearer. She only has one niece, Aubrey, who's 4. My fiancé wants her to be the flower girl. I said that's fine, but I also want Bryn to be one. They can walk down the aisle together. It'd be super cute. Bryn loves playing with Aubrey, so they get along. My fiancé says she wants our wedding to be traditional, so there can only be one flower girl. I suggested Bryn could hold a sign or something while Aubrey threw flowers. My fiancé said no, she can sit with my sister and parents. At this point, I insisted and said Bryn would be flower girl. I texted my sister and asked, and she agreed. My fiancé got angry and said it's my day too. Bryn means a great deal to me and she'll be in the wedding. My fiancé and Aubrey's mom are now mad at me, saying I'm stealing Aubrey's spotlight. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Info: are you two getting premarital counseling to do a general inventory in how you two agree or disagree on other issues? Because I have a sense that if you two did get such counseling, there would be a lot more issues uncovered. We don't have that planned. Maybe a good idea. It's a great idea. Couples before getting married really need to hash out exactly how they feel about things like money, raising kids, how to handle parents when they got older, etc. 100% pro premarital counseling. My partner and I are looking at getting married soon, and premarital counseling is part of that process. OP, not stay home. My partner and I have similarly aged nieces who will be a co-flower girls. I even have a second niece who is a smidge older who will likely also be grouped in with them, maybe blowing bubbles. It is totally normal, and for my partner and I, didn't feel like any sort of compromise. We both said yes, of course. This makes sense because we want all the kids involved. Not day home. Just an observation, your fiancé sees this as her wedding, not our wedding. Honestly, if it were me, and I'm maybe just way too petty, I would tell her that either Bryn is in as co-flower girl, or none of your fiancé's brothers-in-law or groomsmen. Just replace them with friends or co-workers. But again, just an observation. If this is your fiancé's reaction, good luck, buddy. For real, she already took over both halves of the bridal party, so the least she can do is give him a co-flower girl. If my fiancé tried to dictate my groomsmen, that would be a real deal breaker for me. I might allow one if I actually liked him enough. The way I see it, my groomsmen are mine, her bridesmaids are hers, and unless there is something serious, we don't really get much of a say in that. I already made it clear to my girlfriend who I'm talking marriage with, that my best friend and his wife will both be standing up for me. She's so excited to get a matching suit with her husband, and I don't care how anyone's family reacts. I won't dictate her side and she won't dictate mine. Now for the update. Okay, wow. Thank you to everyone who reached out. This morning, my fiancé and I sat down to talk about the wedding in general. I brought up Bryn and Aubrey. My fiancé just kept parroting, "It's tradition, let Aubrey have the spotlight." She shot down compromise after compromise. Aubrey walks first, Bryn blows bubbles or holds a sign, etc. Finally, my fiancé was honest. She doesn't want Bryn in our wedding because Bryn has Down syndrome. She said everyone will be looking at her, taking pity, etc. Turns out it wasn't about a spotlight on Aubrey, but my freaking fiancé. I told her to screw herself, called her ableist, and said don't worry, there won't be a spotlight to steal anymore because there's no wedding. I've left our apartment, staying at my sister's and playing with Bryn. My phone has been blowing up with texts and calls from my fiancé. Magically, she's ready to compromise now. I need time, but I'm likely done. Y'all were right. Didn't see that coming. I just thought she wanted her niece because it's her niece and her wedding. Men usually get their wants overlooked in weddings. This is way worse. This wasn't innocent when she asked him to have her family in as groomsmen but couldn't have his sister. This woman is a piece of work. This was weird. Her brother as a groomsman, sure. But her brothers-in-law? What the heck is that? Oh wow. I read the original post this morning before the update. I didn't think it was a good sign that it made it over here so quickly. The comment from Opie that really stood out to me. My fiancé has had some jealousy issues with Bryn. I'm not as close with Aubrey, mainly because we don't see her much. My fiancé also feels I'm too close with Bryn. My sister is a single mom. Her husband passed and I'm the only male role model in Bryn's life. I go to her ballet recitals, taught her how to ride her trike, babysit her overnight. It never interferes with time with my fiancé, but she thinks it's weird. Wow, I hope he sounds like a real stand-up guy to support his sister and his niece that way. He deserves a wife that loves his niece as much as he does, and that encourages him supporting his sister. I think before all the ableist views came out, she was still way out of line by insisting every person in her family should be in the wedding, but his two family members couldn't be. The truth propels her into a true villain instead of just a selfish bridezilla. He mentions in the comments that his fiancé is jealous of Denise as well, which is probably colored more from the ableist viewpoint, but still so freaking weird. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad what his fiancé said and causing wedding troubles? My 16 female mom passed away 8 years ago. I look just like her. Same hair, same eyes. With the right makeup, I resemble her exact face. I know that my dad loved my mom so much. Losing her hurt him deeply. We became tight-knit and my dad has been an awesome parent for me. I know I can't count on him for anything. He's about to get married to his girlfriend of 3 years. We had a rough patch a year and so ago when they began to talk about marriage. She didn't like that he introduced the idea to me rather than just ask her, and then let me find out / tell me together. She also didn't like that I didn't want to take any part in the wedding party. I'm happy for my dad. I truly am. And I like his girlfriend as a person, but she will never be my mother. And at 16, I hardly need to bond with someone that way. I'll spend the wedding taking care of my uncle's kids. He's paying me and I accepted. This wedding is really not a big deal for me. What I did accept is give a small speech about them, and that's all. A week or so ago, my grandmother, Dad's mom, his fiancé and I went shopping to get something she wanted. I saw a dress that I liked for the wedding, and so we went to the store so I could try it on. It was an olive dress that matched my hair nicely. I'm a ginger. They complimented me, and my grandma said that I looked like my mother because she wore that color so much. Just a small comment. We moved on and that was all. Then 2 days ago, my dad's fiancé came to me and asked if I was willing to dye my hair or wear a wig for the wedding. I was taken aback because WTF? I said no questions asked. But she said she didn't want people telling me I looked like my mother at her wedding. I said no, and I asked her to get out of my room because it wasn't gonna happen. As soon as my dad came back from work, I told him what happened earlier and that it made me feel uncomfortable. I went to stay with my uncle and they talked, and the wedding was paused because they fought. Now his fiancé's family is blaming me because I caused this problem by refusing to compromise to a bride's request. I'm feeling guilty because I didn't mean for this to happen. But sometimes when I try to talk to his fiancé about things I didn't like and how it's made me feel, she treats me as a brat who wants to get her way. So I rather tell my dad and have him talk to her. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Her request was so petty and out of line it isn't even funny. If your father has any sense at all, he will tell his fiancé to kick rocks. It really took me by surprise, because she has never been like this and has never shown any animosity toward my mom or her memory. She has even said she loves my hair. It was weird, to be honest. She's never been this way before because she's been putting on an act. This is showing that she's insecure and jealous over you and your mother. Not the a-hole. You didn't cause this. She did. Her insecurities and jealousy about your mom surfaced, and she made a really unreasonable request. It's right that the wedding has been put on hold for now. She has some stuff to work through. Not the a-hole times 1,000. Next, she'll be asking you to have plastic surgery and look like herself. I have a wonderful friend who is a second wife. The kids her husband had were 14, 16, 19, 24 when they married. Her husband had a wonderful portrait of the family over the fireplace, and their mother was in that portrait. At the engagement dinner, the groom's boss's wife said, "OMG, you need to remove that painting." She said it loud and in almost a scream. My friend ran over and said, "No, don't you dare take that portrait down. That is their mother." I wouldn't love a man who stopped loving his children's mother just because she died. In that moment, his children surrounded her and knew they had a second mother who would love them. And she does. I hope your father doesn't marry this selfish woman and finds one who understands the heart can make room for new loves without destroying the old love. When my stepmom married my dad, our mother had been dead for about 5 years. Stepmom found shoe boxes full of pictures in the attic. Family pictures with my sister and me, our mother, dad, and grandparents. She made photo albums and put them in the living room. When Dad passed away 50 plus years later, she arranged for us all to meet at a cemetery so some of his ashes could be interred with our mothers. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for accidentally announcing my elopement the day of my sister's wedding? My husband, 34 male, and I, 29 female, eloped in late June. Neither of us had ever dreamed of a big wedding. We fell in love with the opposite concept, which was doing it privately and getting to keep that special memory, something just between us two. We had plans to throw a party around our 1-year anniversary so our families could celebrate with us then. So far, we hadn't told my side of the family that we had tied a knot. We live in a few hours away from them and wanted to be able to tell them in person rather than over the phone, but hadn't gotten a chance so far. My sister, 27 female, got married yesterday, traditional wedding style. We drove down Friday afternoon and said our hellos, but kept to ourselves for the most part and let her and her bridal party do their thing. She was focused on a million other things, and rings on mine and my husband's fingers were the last thing on her mind, as they were for us. Being married almost 2 months means wearing those rings has just become second nature. I don't take it off, and I hardly remember him wearing it unless someone points it out to me. The next morning, we were invited to have breakfast with my sister, my mother, and her bridal party. To make a long story short, my mom noticed mine and my husband's wedding bands and asked if they were what she thought they were. We attempted to change the course of the conversation without outright lying, but my mother kept pushing until we finally admitted that yes, we had gotten married back in June. My sister got very angry and asked my husband and I to leave breakfast. We apologized profusely, but she held her ground. The rest of the day went off nicely, but we did ask members of the bridal party if she was still angry, and they said yes, and that she thought we had worn the ring specifically to steal the light of her big day. My husband and I are obviously very embarrassed, but we don't fully believe the onus falls on us here. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. Sorry, I don't believe for a second you didn't have one thought between the two of you that wearing wedding bands wouldn't attract questions. Look, it's fine to elope. It's fine to have a small wedding. It's not okay to announce hours before a sibling's wedding that you eloped. That's just awkward for everyone, and attention-grabbing. You could have left your wedding bands at home or told people in advance. It's one thing to elope, but it's another to not even bother mentioning it to family. Why keep being married a secret? Hard agree in all points here. You're the a-hole, OP. It was the day after the wedding, and only because the mother pushed the question, even when OP and her husband tried to steer the conversation in a different direction. I disagree, so I'm going with not the a-hole. You're the a-hole. It sounds like you didn't mean it, but wearing your wedding rings effectively is announcing your marriage, and letting your family see them for the first time on your sister's wedding day is definitely going to upset her. We don't fully believe the onus falls on us here. Why? Exactly this. It is OP's fault here, and the sister's reaction is justified. You're the a-hole, OP. We don't fully believe the onus falls on us here. Who does the onus fall on then? Was your sister supposed to put in the invite? If anyone has gotten secretly married, please leave your secret wedding rings at home? You're the a-hole. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not inviting my parents to my wedding because of how they treat my sisters? Some backstory. I'm 30 female, the oldest of 5. I have 3 full siblings. Male 27, female 25, Juliet 20, and 1 half-sister, Charlotte, 7. 8 years ago, my dad had an affair. That woman got pregnant and didn't want anything to do with the baby, so she gave her to my parents. My parents didn't want anything to do with her, so my sisters and I were always expected to take care of Charlotte, and she's always had her own room in my house because I babysat overnight so often. 5 years ago, my parents moved into a 2-bedroom condo. My dad had 1 room and my mom had the other. Juliet and Charlotte were supposed to share the living room. Charlotte climbed onto the balcony and fell once. She got out of the condo and was found wandering around the neighborhood multiple times. Heck, Juliet would take her and they'd take a bus/walk to my place. Needless to say, after a couple months, they both moved in with me. Charlotte was okay after falling from the balcony in case anyone was worried. And 4 years ago, I adopted both girls. Right before Juliet started college, our parents told her they used her college fund to pay for their condo. So instead of going to her dream school, she went to community college and goes to a nearby state school and I pay her tuition. Community college is free in our area, and a state school isn't too expensive. Plus, she has some scholarships to help cover it. Charlotte is such a happy little girl. She's the kind of kid that'll run up to you and jump into your arms when you visit before running outside to pick you some flowers. I love dressing her up and doing her hair and our talks when I walk her home from school and our ice cream dates. She's the perfect kid. My parents want nothing to do with Charlotte while they barely like talking to Juliet, but at least they'll say happy birthday and get her a Christmas gift. Charlotte hasn't seen them since she was 3 and doesn't even know who they are. As far as she knows, I'm her only mommy. I have been dating Henry for 3 years. He adores Charlotte and is an amazing stepdad. He moved in a few months ago and we're getting married in October. We posted in our social medias about a wedding, and my parents texted me asking when they should expect their invitation. I told them they're not invited. Juliet is my maid of honor, and she doesn't want to see them, and I don't want them around Charlotte. They tried telling me that their relationship with Juliet or Charlotte is none of my business, and that they were good parents to me, so they deserve to be invited to my wedding. I told them it is my business because I adopted them, and I said they weren't good parents because they forced me to become a mom at 23 when Charlotte was born. Now my mom is upset that I'm blaming her for my dad's mistakes, and I have other family members telling me I should invite them to keep the peace, so I wanted to know if I was the a-hole. Not the a-hole. First of all, your sisters are incredibly lucky to have you. That said, you absolutely are not obligated to invite these people to your wedding. Good on you for putting the feelings of Juliet and Charlotte above those of anyone else. You certainly didn't learn that from your parents. Exactly. I wish Opie and their family all the best. The parents sound like horrible people. I don't even understand why Opie would entertain them. What is the point? I would pay them dust. Not the a-hole. Weddings are about family. Real family. I got some grief when I didn't invite certain people to my wedding, but it was worth it to have a good celebration. It truly was one of the best days of my life, and I strongly believe it's because I didn't invite any a-holes. My parents also thought their friends would be invited. That was a whole other argument. Am I the a-hole for reporting my brother for child abandonment? Plus update. So I, 25 female, usually work from home and frequently babysit my brother's, 31 male, and sister-in-law's kids. They have 3 kids, all between the ages of 4 to 7. My brother has a rather demanding job that I won't be revealing here as I don't think he'd want me to, and his wife is a nurse, so frequently they'll need me to babysit for them and usually it's fine. My brother contacted me a few days ago and asked if I could babysit his kids for the upcoming weekend as he and his wife would be 2 states away. Usually I would agree, but I had a trip planned with some friends to go to New York City, clear across the country from us, for a few days. I told him as such, but he got upset and told me that my vacation could wait, because whatever it was he had to go to was work-related and extremely important, and that his wife was away caring for her mother who had a stroke recently. I told him that I wouldn't be canceling my plans as I needed a break from work, and he blew up and started yelling about how I should be tired because I just sit at home all day and don't have any kids. At which point I just hung up on him after telling him no once again. Fast forward to my trip, and I'm hanging at the hotel with my girlfriends, and I check my phone and see a notification from 2 hours ago that there was a movement detected at my front door. I check my camera, and I'm just entirely freaking floored. There on my front porch were his kids, who apparently had been sitting there unsupervised for 2 whole hours. Of course, I flip out and call my brother, and scream at him about this, and ask where the heck he was, and why would he just leave them there when he knew I wouldn't be there. He then freaks out at me because I'm not at home where I was supposed to be. No, I wasn't. I told him I wouldn't be, and tells me that I have left his kids in a dangerous situation because he's 2 cities away from home. Turns out that after I hung up on him, he decided he would call my bluff and drop them off anyway, then he just left without even checking to see if I was even home. Now I'm extremely angry and worried sick about my nieces. So without anyone any of us could call to take care of them, I called the police and informed them of the situation and that there's no one even in the city to take care of them. Then I called my sister-in-law to tell her that I had called the police. And turns out she had no idea wouldn't be there because my brother lied to her. Of course she's furious at him. And my brother is spamming me with texts that I'm going to get his kids taken away and that his wife won't talk to him. Overall, I'm just very angry. And just as confused as to what was going on in his head when he decided to just leave 3 kids all under the age of 8, all alone and leave the freaking city. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. It's unfair to you. Also, couldn't your sister-in-law call to confirm that you would have been home? Your brother risked his children's safety. Nothing here is your fault. I don't really blame my sister-in-law. My brother flat out lied to her, and she had no reason to believe that he would pull a stunt like this, so she believed him. There was no one else to call. My sister-in-law was out of town taking care of her mother. I don't know any of my brother's friends, and all of my friends with the key to my place were with me in New York City. Our parents also don't live in the same state, so they couldn't take them either. It seems odd because this entire situation is bizarre. I can't give you an answer to half of these questions because I don't know what was going on in my idiot brother's head when he pulled the stunt. As for letting them inside, my brother is forgetful and loses his key to my house every damn week. Either that or he left them and drove off so that when I opened my door, which I wasn't going to obviously, I'd have no choice but to babysit them. He knows my front camera alerts me to motions outside my door, so that may be why he doesn't bother ringing the doorbell. As for whether or not anyone else saw them, I don't know. I don't really know any of my neighbors, nor I have spoken to them about this. Not the a-hole. What your brother did was so dangerous, reckless, spiteful, and idiotic. He was playing chicken with you, with his children's welfare. Father of the Year. No way should anyone ever just drop their kids off at a doorstep and leave. I won't even do that for adult friends at their own houses. I always hang around to make sure they get inside. I feel bad for your sister-in-law, that she may also have to deal with any fallout, but your brother absolutely needed a wake-up call from the cops. I would kick my significant other to the curb if he did this, so I could keep my kids. I wouldn't be losing them because he is a horrible parent. Not the a-hole. He asked, you said no, repeatedly. And he called your bluff? These poor kids. I hope brother and sister-in-law have good insurance because the therapy sessions these kids will need to deal with this abandonment will not be cheap. A few hours won't be enough. Think about it. Kids' view. Mommy is at Granny's place because Granny's sick. Mommy's not here for us. Daddy drops us off at Auntie's and drives away. He left us. Auntie doesn't open the door. Doesn't want us. Again, kids' view. I'm hungry, thirsty, tired, need to go potty. It's cold, hot, dry, wet? I'm frightened. Where's everyone? There is a strange man or woman walking a scary dog. Why is the police here? Where did they take us? Where's mommy, daddy, and auntie? Who is this lady asking us questions? CPS. Who is this lady tucking us in? Foster parent / emergency placement, etc., etc. He fears he will lose the kids, and sister-in-law isn't speaking with him? He deserves it. Heartbreaking. You know what happens when you have an important event and no childcare? You miss the event. You attend remotely or you bring your kids and hope they'll be chill in a corner of the room with tablets, headphones, and snacks. People are ridiculously indulgent toward men who take their kids' places. Your brother had choices, and he made a terrible one. Opie, if there was no family in town, I really don't see that you had any other choice. Really, what if you didn't have a high-tech front door camera? Best case scenario, a kind stranger would have called the police. That's the best case scenario, not the a-hole. And now for the update. I couldn't post an update to the original sub, but I realized people were following this account in hopes of an update about the situation. For the sake of my sister's privacy, I won't be going in depth, but the children were okay for anyone wondering. They're currently with my sister-in-law, who is currently staying elsewhere separately from my brother. A lot of people commented on the last post about how my brother's behavior didn't make any sense, and I couldn't really give you an answer because nothing about the situation was sensible to begin with, nor was this normal behavior for my brother. It was entirely out of left field for him, and prior to this, I would have never assumed he would do something like this. He was oftentimes busy with work and so couldn't spend a lot of time with the girls, but when he could, he spent every second with them. He was very caring and conscientious when it came to them. However, it has recently come to light that my brother has been having some sudden onset mental issues and seemed to be in some sort of manic state when this occurred. I don't know if my sister-in-law will continue her marriage to my brother, but we're looking into getting my brother some help and treatment. As of right now, he's in an institution willingly, and when he gets out, we will be there to look after and support him. Thank you all for your well wishes and have a blessed day. Well, I was not expecting that ending at all. My bets were on drugs, affair, or something highly illegal. Didn't see this one coming. Same here. After the RV story, I totally thought it was an affair. One of my friends had a neighbor who would drop off / abandon her kids whenever she felt like a break. Neighbor would literally lower them over the shared back fence. My friend would look out of her patio window and see 2 extra toddlers playing in the backyard. Surprise! This was annoying but manageable when she was home with her own small children, and 2 extra wasn't a massive burden. It was, however, intolerable when she had her kids at daycare so she could work. It was downright dangerous when she went on holidays and the kids were left in a wet wintry garden for a couple of hours before the other neighbor heard them crying and called the police. The neglectful mother was indignant and angry to be charged and moved out shortly afterwards. No one on the street missed her, but those poor kids. Neighbor would literally lower them over the shared back fence. What the actual hell? That's basically illegal border crossing but house scale. Kinda had a feeling it was probably a mental health thing as soon as she said that her brother had just left the kids on the doorstep. I know that some people are just awful parents, but something didn't really add up. It's good to see that he's getting treatment though. I have a bipolar friend. He's staying on his medication these days, but if he was unmedicated, this is totally something I could see him doing. Basically, any idea he gets in his mind when he's manic is the most amazing idea ever and will totally work out perfectly, and there's no way you can convince him otherwise. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife she either starts working or her adult kids pay rent? I've been married to my wife for 5 years. She has 2 kids from her previous marriage. Jason, 22 male, and Carla, 19 female. When we married, my wife still had 50-50 custody of her kids and she wanted to move into my house. I converted the attic into a bedroom so both of her kids and us could have our own rooms. Their father is present in their life, so I was pretty much designated the guy that married their mom, and I'm fine with that. I sorely underestimated how much having 2 teenagers in the house would increase bills. When I was single, I could do my mortgage and bills fine on my own. Post-marriage, everything but the mortgage has gone up, not including spending money for the kids and their extracurriculars. My wife got child support from her ex and some extra help with her expenses, which helped a bit while she had it. But I still had to dip into my savings a lot. It was really important to my wife to be a stay-at-home mom until they graduated. It was tight, but we made it work. Jason moved out after graduating high school to attend college out of state. And when Carla graduated last year, we agreed she could have 1 year to figure if she'd be moving out or applying to nearby schools. Currently, she's not working or in school. A few days ago, I go into the kitchen and my wife was on the phone with Jason and she told him that he was more than welcome to move back in and that she was excited to see him when he got here. After she hung up, I told her that she should have run that by me first so we could discuss it. I wasn't opposed to it, but told her he should know what he'd expected to contribute if he's moving in. She responded that she had always told her kids that they would always be welcomed home whenever they wanted and not have to worry about expenses. I told my wife that was really nice of her, but she made that arrangement with her ex-husband when they were married. She didn't make that arrangement with me. If Jason moved back in, he'd have to pay rent to pitch in with groceries and utilities he'd be using. And it probably should be the same for Carla, so it's not one sibling paying while the other isn't. She said they're her kids and shouldn't have to pay to live at home. So I told her if she felt that strongly about her kids not pitching in now that they're adults, she could go back to work. She's been sleeping in Jason's old room since we're still debating it, and her parents have chimed in with their 2 cents that I shouldn't be making kids pay to live at home. My whole thing is, they're not kids anymore. When they're 40, they'll still be her kids, but that doesn't mean treating them like minors, especially if it means someone else footing all the bills. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They absolutely should contribute. The biggest issue here is your wife not having a job though. How is she supporting herself before? She had lived with her parents after their divorce and only worked part-time while they were at school. Her parents are nice, but bend over backward for her since she is the only one of their kids that had kids. Not the a-hole. You are being used, and I think you know that. Your wife is using you as a piggy bank. What exactly does she do all day? She expects to do nothing and have you fund her life? If her parents don't think she or her kids should have to pay anything, they can take her in or send her money for your bills. Until that happens, their opinion is worthless. Stay strong. She does take care of the house during the daytime until I get home and pitch in. She will also babysit for some of her friends to help them save on childcare, but she doesn't get paid to do it, though I think she should be charging them. It was really important to my wife to be a stay-at-home mom until they graduated. Not the a-hole. Your wife clearly does not want to, nor intend to, ever work again. Insisting on being a stay-at-home mom while children are in high school is ridiculous, and they are years beyond graduation at this point. Funny how their father is off the hook for support now, but you are still paying through the nose to support his kids. Yeah, the idea that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mother for high schoolers is ridiculous, especially when the OP needed to dip into his savings to bankroll their lifestyle. She's also setting up a situation where it's going to be increasingly harder for her to earn a decent amount of money. It isn't right, but it's often much harder for people to get hired if they've been out of work for a long period of time. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for questioning why I wasn't invited to a baby shower for a child that I'm carrying? My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years. We lived separately. He was 30 and lived with his parents. I was 31 and lived with my 6-year-old. We had our baby on September 14th, while the baby shower was sometime in August. His aunt decided to throw a baby shower for him. She said it would be a male's version of a baby shower. Men only. But that was a lie. She invited his mother, her daughter, his cousin, and herself of course, but she said I wasn't allowed to come. If it were men-only baby shower, then why were those women there? Also, that would only make sense if it were a bachelor party. I was carrying the baby, and I wasn't allowed to be there. All my boyfriend said to me was that it was out of his control. I feel like he should have stood up for me and said it didn't sound fair, that it should be a baby shower for the both of us. Every baby shower I had been to always had both parents. Also, I didn't feel like he deserved a party looking like he's the father of the year, because he didn't even show up to many of my baby appointments except for 2 of them. One being when we found out the gender. It was on my birthday, but he had to leave shortly after the appointment because he was spending the day with his mom. On my birthday. Also, they lived together. Another appointment he came to was a 3-hour glucose test, but he spent half that appointment on the phone with his mother. Also, he wasn't there much for me during the pregnancy when I was throwing up or needed help lifting something. I had to do it mostly by myself. Again, we are together. Maybe this would make sense if we weren't together. He tells me that the baby shower wasn't out of spite, that it was supposed to be guys only, with the exception of his mother, aunt, and a cousin. Yet I'm the mother. Not the a-hole and big yikes. I wish you weren't linked to this man for the rest of your life, because he's married to his mom, and you're the other woman. Not the a-hole. Mama's boy alert. You would be the a-hole if you even think that he is your boyfriend. No, he is not. He may be with you at times for whatever reasons, but it is not because he is your boyfriend. His family is his heart, not you. You need to start working with the legal authorities/attorney to get some child support paperwork in order and make sure you get legal custody. I can see his mommy pushing him for custody so she can be mommy to his baby, not you. Your 6-year-old is watching this unfold, learning from you what a true relationship is. So do better. Set better examples for your child. Does he live with you now or still with mommy? You wrote, again, we are together. No. Your words say differently. Your words say you are not. Did your family/friends throw you a baby shower? Did he attend? Did his family attend? Where are all the items from his baby shower? At his mommy's house? You would be the a-hole OP if you don't do what this comment says. You need to legally protect yourself and your baby. He isn't your boyfriend, and is probably only coming over to sleep with you. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents that if they won't tell me the truth, I'll assume the worst of them? Plus updates. Original post. So, my 14 female family totally exploded while I was on a spring break 2 weeks ago. I went on a trip with my grandparents and came back to my mom moved out and a serious sit-down talk about them divorcing. It's not exactly a surprise because they've both been acting weird and shady for a while. But that's not what I was expecting to come back to, and they could have let me unpack first at least. They asked me if I had any questions, and I asked them which one cheated because that was my first thought. They got super uncomfortable and said that the reasons between them were private. I said, not when it means I suddenly lost my family over it, and they owe me at least some reason that this is happening, and we don't love each other anymore doesn't cut it. You don't just stop loving someone for no reason. That's dumb. So what? They said that was all I needed to know, and we need to talk about how the living situation was going to work and everything. I told them that I don't want to live with either of them if they're going to be like that. Everyone has been mad since then, and my mom came over to talk it out last night. They still don't want to tell me why. I told them both that if they were going to hide stuff, I'll just make up my own worst case and go with that. And since mom left, It can all be her fault, and since it's her fault, I won't live with her or go see her. She got upset and said that it was unfair, and it wasn't her fault. I told her to give me the real reason then, or just deal with it. My dad said I was out of line, and I said that it can all be his fault then, and same deal. That started an argument between the two of them, but I'm holding my own. Pretty sure at least one of them will crack and tell me what happened soon, so I can decide how I feel about it. I don't need like graphic details, but a simple someone cheated, or mom's a secret lesbian, don't tell anyone, or we've both really changed a lot, I don't want the same things would help. If one of them did something bad, I want to know. If they won't own up or explain why there are no bad guys, they can both be the bad guy. I had to talk to my school counselor today, and she said that is totally understandable, but playing them against each other is going to hurt everyone. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. You're the a-hole. Jesus, kid. Your parents are having far more decorum in this divorce than most divorcing parents ever have. They are trying not to pin blame all in one parent and have to work out this incredibly massive shift in their lives themselves. This is a huge thing for them emotionally as much as it is for you. If they are not at each other's throats and trying to make things as smooth for you as possible, you can at least show a little decorum and give them some time to work up to explaining it to you. Not everything needs to be the result of some big, explosive, dramatic moment. Life isn't TV or TikTok. Go out and touch grass. I'll add that I think her parents are doing the right thing not telling her. Not every conflict needs to have a bad guy, even if one parent betrayed or hurt the other. Opie's life has been turned upside down, and she's looking for someone to blame, which is a natural response. Opie's relationship to each of her parents individually doesn't need to change, just because their relationship to each other has. Teenagers are developmentally not generally able to see gray area in complex situations like this. Let's assume, as Opie is, that one parent cheated on the other. It's a very good reason to get a divorce. There was a betrayal in that relationship. I don't think it means that Opie should now see that parent as the bad guy and refuse to ever see that parent again. This isn't healthy for Opie or the parent. I don't condone cheating, but I don't think it's necessarily a reason to lose your relationship with your kid. Marriages are very complicated, more than a 14-year-old is able to realize. How many Reddit posts have we seen where a kid's entire relationship with their parent is ruined over things like this? I think you are 14 years old and don't understand adult relationships. I'm sorry they sprung it on you like this. It isn't fair. In time you will learn the truth of what happened between your parents, but right now, it may be too raw for them. They are human, and it is painful for them too. Be grateful they aren't blaming each other to you. Many things can end a relationship. Not necessarily cheating or interested in different gender. Give some slack for getting a divorce, but you have every right to express your feelings. I'm very sorry this happened to you. Agreed. And to add to this too, if Opie's parents have been acting strangely for a while, then this trip with the grandparents may have been strategically planned to get her out of the house so they could settle the logistics privately. Or, even if purely coincidental in timing, the opportunity could have been the same. Oh, the trip was definitely purposeful. I feel for Opie. Even if they saw the writing on the wall, it still feels like you're being blindsided with such an abrupt reality change that was decided when you weren't around with no input. 14 is a hard age to deal with such big feelings. Many kids haven't had the sympathy gender kick in yet. Everything is all about me. They did this to me. It sucks, Opie, but one day you'll understand that it's not about you, and you're not entitled to the intimacies of your parents' relationship. I'm sure you don't want them to be all up in your business all the time either. Everyone is hurting. I'm sure they didn't make this decision lightly. If otherwise they have been good parents, give them some grace and love them each separately. If you let it, it will get better. But do you see them as people? Obviously they weren't happy together. Did it ever occur to you why they weren't even staying together? People also make mistakes and do stupid things when they feel unhappy and trapped. Are you saying you're perfect and will never in your life make a mistake? Yes, I see them as people, and people make mistakes. But people who are worth keeping close admit their mistakes, apologize, and make it right. My parents have been wrong about a lot of things before this. They never once apologized to me, so I already had a bad opinion of them. It's just worse now. If I ever make the kind of mistakes I now know they've made, I really hope I have someone close that will go off on me like a nuke. Why do they owe you an apology for their marriage not working out? They owe me an apology for lying to me for over a year, right to my face when they know I know better. They owe me an apology for springing this on me before I even got my bag set down, good coming back home. They owe half the town a huge apology for the way they've been behaving and treating people at this point. Edit. Okay, I'm the a-hole. That's okay. I did some digging on my own tonight, and I know pretty much what happened now. I don't feel bad about being an a-hole to a-holes. Thanks. Now for the first update 6 days later. This is more of an exercise for me so that I can get my thoughts straight before I make some decisions. If you're here to at me about being an a-hole for my AITA post, today is not the day. And I'm not the one. I accept the judgment. I just don't feel bad about it now. If you can be cool with your feedback, I'm open to that. I do listen and turn over reasonable advice, but I've had a stressful week, so constructive replies only please. I won't be humoring aggressive trolls. To bring everything up to date, family therapy was a fiasco. I told a counselor that I didn't want to participate and I would rather stay in the lobby. After she tried to convince me to stay in the room, she let me go back out. My parents told me I was grounded if I didn't stay, but the therapist talked to them alone for a while and then we left. I'm not grounded and they're big mad. I still have to go with them weekly, but I don't have to stay in the room. I have to go to an individual counselor next week, and I'll see what happens when I refuse treatment. Hopefully, I won't have to go back. I've decided to keep the contents of the dossier I gathered closed for now until I can weigh a couple of points of moral conflict. There are illegal things going on, but busting it open could hurt people who don't deserve it. It might keep some other people from getting hurt though, depending on how my parents react. There's a not zero chance it could get me physically hurt unless I can do it in a way to be out of reach. I want to have private in-person conversations with all my grandparents, and maybe my rabbi first. My mom cracked last night like I thought she would, but only admitted to my dad cheating. I am so done with both of them. I was going to spend a month with each set of grandparents this summer anyway, so my parents agreed to just let my home base be with my grandma until the fall. I'll go once my exams are done. At least my grandma's happy. I talked to my other grandparents after a Shabbat dinner and told them that I know they lied to me. They apologized and we talked. I'm sleeping over with them this weekend and we'll hash some things out tomorrow. I feel like something I've learned this week is that some people really get mad when I resist being controlled. Being a good kid and doing what everyone has always told me are the right things doesn't matter unless I shut up and do what I'm told. I'm not going to stop doing good, but I feel pretty done with shutting up and obeying. A lot of people said I would regret knowing the truth. I don't. Happy is not a word. I'm just tired and really disappointed and angry. Now I know who I'm dealing with, and I feel better knowing that I wasn't imagining things like my parents said. Short version. 1. Both my parents are cheating. Both are angry at each other over it, as it wasn't like an open situation. They just cheated. 2. My dad bullied one of his partners into terminating a pregnancy last year. One of the people he's cheating with is under 18. He's doing stuff that's going to get him on some kind of list, and probably jail if he gets caught. 3. My mom is trying to break up her boyfriend's marriage because she thinks he'll move in with her then. She's done some really sad and crazy stalker things, and it's scary. She cracked like I thought she would, but only told me my dad cheated. 4. They tried to force me to participate in family therapy and threatened to ground me for the entire summer if I didn't. The therapist let me sit in the lobby while they talked, and I think talked them out of it. I have to go to the place with them, but I don't have to sit in the session if I don't want to. 5. I talked to my grandparents about lying to me during the trip, that no divorce was coming, and they apologized and said that they realized now that it wasn't the best approach. So we're cool. 6. I'm going to spend the next few weekends in summer between my grandparents. I don't even want to look at my parents. Basically, all the sneaking around, fighting, and shady stuff I noticed was real, and they've been lying to me for nearly 2 years. 7. Now I have to decide whether to out them or not, because really bad stuff is going on. The plan at present is to talk with my rabbi about the ethics involved, and then tell someone who can do something at least about the underage girl. The rest of it is crappy, but that's the part that really needs to be stopped right now, I think. I just had to comment here. Reading your post was like reading how I was at age of 14. Very stubborn, very concerned with right and wrong, and filled with rage. But you are allowed to be filled with rage, because I can't imagine coming home at that age and hearing that. I am so sorry, OP. I want to know though, how was your relationship with your parents prior to all of this? It seems like you were very adamant about your harsh behavior towards them, which makes me think you never trusted them. Or maybe you were just acting like this now because you were very confused about the situation. You said something illegal is going and don't want to bust it open because it gets other people hurt, but it also may prevent someone from hurting others. This is gonna be a really awkward question, but did one of your parents cheat on the other with someone who wasn't of legal age? Because that's the only thing that comes to mind. You don't even have to answer if you don't want to, but that just seemed concerning to read. I read all your comments and my suspicion was proved right, but I also learned other things. I'm so sorry. I haven't trusted my parents for a while. Looking back, I don't think I've fully trusted them for way longer than before I started noticing the really weird behavior in the last couple of years. I just didn't realize that it was why I felt weird about them. They don't get me, and it's just gotten worse over time. With how they handled all this, it's like they don't know anything about me. I loved my parents. I just don't like them very much. Now, I don't love them either. I don't want to get into the illegal stuff just in case, but this is life-ruining, go to jail for years stuff for my dad. And my mom's not far behind with what she's doing. There is at least one underage person involved, I'll say that. My mom's stuff seems to be escalating, so I'm worried that if it doesn't go the way she wants it, she might end up doing something even worse. My mom cracked last night like I thought she would, but only admitted to my dad cheating. I am so done with both of them. So why did she move out and not your dad? She says she moved out because she doesn't want to be in that house anymore because memories. That's BS. They're both cheating, and she thinks she can break up her boyfriend's marriage and have him move in with her. I don't want to go into the specifics of everything she's doing because it's just weird, sad, and increasingly illegal. Now for the second update. Things blew up this weekend. I wasn't home when everything happened, so I missed most of the fireworks, but I've gotten the story through my family. My dad got suspended from his job Friday, and the cops took him in. He's out now, but my grandparents told me that it's serious. Everyone in the family's all riled up, mostly at my dad. Apparently, the word got out since he's a teacher and a coach, so it's a circus. My mom showed up to tell me what happened and take me to her place, but I told her I didn't want to. My grandparents talked her down, so I'm staying with them. I go to a different school, but they decided to keep me home today. I'm supposed to talk to some people later this morning anyway, and go get some clothes and stuff from the house. I haven't heard from my dad. My other grandma, his mom, came over yesterday and I feel really bad for her. This is the saddest I've ever seen her since Grandpa died. No one seems to know that I reported it. I don't know what happened with the girl, but I'm guessing she admitted stuff was happening. I hope she's okay. I don't know where things go from here, but I've told all my grandparents that I don't want to live with Mom. Living with Dad doesn't seem like an option right now, but I don't want to go there either. They said we would figure it out. I told my grandparents, Mom's parents, last weekend that I don't think she's being honest with them, and they believe me. The cop I talked to said that as long as I'm in a safe place with people who are looking out for me, it's not likely that anyone is going to make me go back to my parents without a lot of legal wrangling. So as long as my grandparents are okay with it, I should be okay. I've got a summer job in the works, so I'm just going to focus on that and lay low, I think. Save up everything I can. This whole thing is a mess, and I feel like I'm stuck in a nightmare a lot of the time. But I'm not sorry I found out the truth. Parents, they mess you up. Poor Opie has been lied to and gaslit so much that she has huge issues with trust. I don't blame her for digging deeper and finding the facts about what happened. Probably why she doesn't want to see a therapist. Talking to a therapist about how you feel takes a certain level of trust, and her parents have severely damaged their child's ability to do that. They don't deserve to be called parents. I never once thought she was the a-hole in that whole situation. Hopefully, she will be able to heal on her own the further she is away from them. I remember reading her original post. I know that parents are usually told that it is not helpful or good for their children to know if they are divorcing because of infidelity or for one parent to lay blame on the other. So, as a general rule, her parents were doing what they should have done in refusing to explain the details to their daughter. I think I commented to gently say something along those lines. And I'm pretty sure I also apologized for the fact that some of the comments were just awful and cruel. I also seem to recall saying that I agreed her parents were being unreasonable and refusing to give her any answers regarding the reason for their divorce when she gave them the opportunity to say something like they had just grown apart, etc. But they wouldn't even give her that, and that, quite reasonably, increased her suspicions. I definitely remember feeling bad for her, and now I feel just terrible for her. Jeez, the poor kid. However, given what Opie discovered, especially about her father and his student, I have to say, in the end, she was right not to let things lie, and I was wrong to say otherwise. Both of her parents are clearly complete messes, and given their behavior, she is almost certainly better off living with her grandmother/grandparents. Also, I'm really glad she's got such a good rabbi and that she feels can trust him.